Hey, good afternoon, everybody, all over the world, from Mexico to Australia to Asia and Europe and Netherlands. My name is Vincent Everts, and we're here together with DiamondpigsTV. And today we have a very nice episode because as special guest we have Jasper Check, also called Checkmate at Checkmate from Glassnode, a company which, if you don't know it yet, you will know it soon, and it's an extremely nice tool. Jasper, where are you at the moment and what time is it there?
Thanks, Vincent. Calling in from Mexico at the moment. So it's 6 a.m., bright and early, ready to go.
Okay, you get compliments for that. I thought you sounded a little bit Australian, so I thought, oh, you're 12 o'clock or you're 6 o'clock at night. No, you're in Mexico. How did you end up there?
To be honest, just doing something different. After being inside for 2 years in Australia, I thought it's a good opportunity to travel the world and work abroad. And Glassnode gives that opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, and the second guest we have is Ronald van Woensel, and Ronald van Woensel is one of the founders of Diamondpigs, and he's actually the brain which the whole company centers around. He's a great investor. He is great. He's a fantastic programmer, and he's also a great business guy. And where are you, Ronald?
I'm in Drenthe. That's the northern part of Holland. As probably everybody knows.
Nobody has any idea. I mean, it's close to Amsterdam because everything is close to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And of course, we have
we've got the Amsterdam stones here. It's called the Hunebedden.
Yeah. So world famous. Okay. Yeah. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the market analysis. How are we doing at the moment? What is the? We're going to talk about the news. There's some interesting news items, and then we're going to ask James to enlighten us a little bit about Glassnode, and then Ronald van Woensel is going to update us about the robots he made, the bots he made, to basically protect us against downwards falls and have a more intelligent strategy. So we talked about that for a month ago, and now we have a nice update on that because it's already fully operational. So let's start with the market analysis because I think that is really something which we're looking for, and it's nice to have a market analysis at the moment, right, Idan? How is it? How are we doing?
Hi, Vincent. Good afternoon. So first of all, I need to show you this. You forgot to tell me I have a beautiful shirt that you designed.
Oh my God! So, it's so ugly. It is so ugly. What did your wife think?
I don't want to. I told you before we started what she thought about it, but I mean everyone can judge it himself. But I think it's so beautiful. I would just stay like that.
Okay, I'm happy you like it. I designed it, which means it normally is extremely ugly. I try to stay away from design as much as possible. But tell me about what you think of the market at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a sort of change of sentiment since a week. I would say it started just after the Fed meeting, where it became clear that the Fed has decided to raise in 0.25, and that's what I said last time when we were on this broadcasting. I said we need some clarity. When we get some clarity, we'll see whether the trend is continued downtrend or uptrend. So if you look at the BTC USD chart, indeed since 14th of March, so it's about 10 days, we start seeing that we start going up. Still in a range between 34 to 46. We haven't broken the 46 yet. We're on the 43 now. One point was important to break was the 42.5. We've done that. We're stable. And what I think it's more interesting that not only the Bitcoin is going up, we also see that the dominance is going down, and that's we see for the first time. We see for the first time. I think it's been a long time since the altcoins have been outperforming the Bitcoin, and that's the case right now. It's only 1.5%, but the Bitcoin is going up, and the altcoin is going even hard, which is good. It's good for us. We can see also in our strategies that in the last 2 weeks we start to outperform, at least some of strategies outperforming Bitcoin. And one thing to mention as well is that we know that the Luna guys, Do Kwon, he announced that he's going to back his Luna with Bitcoin, and he has been transferring to exchanges $125 million to buy Bitcoin. Not sure whether he bought it or he started buying it gradually, but that definitely gave some push to the market. Not to Luna. Luna is a little bit stable, but it gave a little bit boost to the market, and so Bitcoin is doing well. Sentiment is start to be positive, and that's good.
Okay, so what do you think? Normally, Idan is always much more optimistic sooner than you, Ronald. What do you think? What do you think of the market? You tend to basically want a bit longer.
for me, it's still the waiting game. Although we're busy with sentiment indicators. So and our sentiment indicator just gave the green light on Bitcoin. So yeah, it's looking good. It's looking better. That's to be. I'm a bit careful still.
Yeah. So you think that the market has recovered from the interest and the Ukraine and the and all the bunch of bad news? Bad news. It has been rising market.
As you see in the global markets, also the stock market is also up and is also recovering from some panic with Ukraine war, and of course the Fed is important for stock markets, but also for Bitcoin nowadays. So that's the same old correlation story.
Yeah. We've seen that the fear and greed index, it was 20. I mean, the higher it is, the better it is, and it went from 20. It went from 20 to 40, and you see that it's that the fear is going down. It's going up. So it's hopefully that will change a little bit. And let me see what else did I have. So you talked about already about Bitcoin. This I thought was a wonderful. This was a wonderful presentation from Benjamin Cohen. He's the CEO of the Cryptoverse, and he basically made this slide. I always love these slides. They make reality so easy. Just like if you go from the beginning of times and from 2011 to now, everything fits these nice little bonds that goes up and down a little bit, and you go up, you go down, you go up and down. Of course, every box is a factor of 10. So if you see that here it goes, here we have a little bit going up to 64, then going down, a little going up, and then here going down 50%. These are 50% changes, but in the whole big light, it looks fantastic. I think those are wonderful slides. They give me a feeling of tranquility. And
it's also called curve fitting, by the way. So you can basically fit any graph in some curve.
I love curve fitting. I think intelligent love, and then also a little bit of an explanation about it. I mean, of course, we have Plan B, who always came with that. What do you think, James? I mean, these are not Glassnode slides, but what do you think of those kinds of graphs?
No, I definitely sit on Ronald's team on this one. It's beautiful curve fitting, and I'm lucky to have traded every single one of those red dots and every single one of the bottom trend lines. So it's great.
Okay. One. Okay. So then this is great one. Then you had some news, James. You had some news, James, about Goldman Sachs.
No, I thought it's interesting. We're starting to see some of these bigger institutions. This is the Goldman Sachs homepage. Talking about digitization. As a core theme, and to me, what this shows is just a big shift of these big institutions. It's now more profitable for them to be on board than it is for them to be putting out articles that are saying it's going to zero. So it's just an interesting shift in the overall market, I think. Yeah,
that's a nice sentiment change, that kind of stuff. And I remember when I was enthusiastic about the internet in when was that 1997 or something like that. And suddenly I got passed by all kinds of bankers like Goldman Sachs, and I was in meetings with them all the time and they suddenly became enthusiastic. They had very little idea what it all was about, but they were very enthusiastic. And then you saw that the whole world started to accumulate it. Then we got a big crisis, and then of course the internet took over. So it's always interesting to see these guys. And Goldman Sachs has been really good in predicting that it's all going to be a game and that it's basically doesn't mean anything. But so things change. Okay.
Yeah, another nice issue is maybe that Honduras is also going to officially recognize Bitcoin as legal tender, and that's after El Salvador is of course the next domino that is going to fall.
Yeah.
And we're expecting a lot more countries to adapt Bitcoin.
So Ronald, yesterday night they denied it again. So
Yeah,
I don't know,
I saw it.
There's some of them, Paraguay and Honduras, but they're definitely seeing what
but
El Salvador is doing. And
more countries are coming, so that's unavoidable.
I agree, but Honduras, I'm not sure about. I thought so as well.
It was debunked by the Central Bank of Honduras.
Yeah. They get some. The IMF doesn't like it, huh? So that's one of the problems. They need to be careful, but I see that happening as well. Ukraine has declared Bitcoin as legal tender, and some of the guys from South and Central America, for sure, some of the countries will move as well.
Yeah. So I had that. That was a little bit further. I mean, I had Honduras as a slide in there, Ronald, and then I basically looked at it and they say it's fake news. And then, of course, when the Ukraine has basically signed it, and Venezuela, of course, is one of the candidates. But I heard the same rumor, and then but how do you find out if it's true or not? How do you do that? How do you find out if news is real or not?
Who you're asking?
Ronald, how do you find out if news is fake or not?
Yeah, you have several sources, and normally if it's fake, you get it debunked pretty short afterwards. So it's always You never know for sure, but reliable news sources. That's the only thing.
Yeah. I thought that the sentiment was really interesting. That it's going up. So there was this news: a lawyer joins a DeFi company, and you picked that up. So he went to AV. And why was that interesting for you? And why did you invest? And why did your fund go up so much, Idan?
No. So I think it's very similar to what James just mentioned. We see more and more the guys from the traditional financial services are getting open for crypto. In this case, they're open for Aave. Aave is one of the biggest DeFi protocols using the Ethereum blockchain technology. And the general counselor of Aave has joined the board of Silvergate. Silvergate is a bank in the US, and they will start exploring the possibilities of using DeFi. That's why I think it's important. We have that in one of our strategies, Genoa. We have Aave, and Aave was one of the first coins in the last 2 weeks that started picking up and went up 20%, and that helped, of course, Genoa to increase in terms of performance. So
it's interesting that when the sentiment is up, small things like this, a lawyer goes from one to another, is becoming product. Now, this for me is really interesting. ETH 2.0. I mean, we just had actually. Maybe it's interesting to do this one first. There was Europe rejected the proposal for limiting proof of work. Such as Bitcoin, but they basically went ahead with the MiCA legislation, but proof of work was not included. Although it can still be forbidden to do mining in Europe because of other laws. So that was really interesting. But then I thought it was really interesting that this didn't happen. The proof of work legislation didn't happen. But my question is, I mean, this Ethereum 2.0. I've been waiting for that forever, and now I saw that we basically it's scheduled for June 22nd, and I really want to hear from all of you if you think that this is really going to be reality. So first, James, what do you think? You're an observer of ETH, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I certainly fall more on the Bitcoin camp. It's as you said, proof of stake has been one of these things that's been in the pipeline for a very, very long time. it is an enormous engineering undertaking, and they're trying to swap a jet engine whilst it's flying at great speed. So look, it will be an engineering feat if they can pull it off. I do have my doubts, and just based on past history, it tends to get delayed and pushed back. We'll see how it goes. I think one of the challenges that ETH probably faces, from my view, is that it's not going to fix a lot of the gas problems that most people I think there's been a bit of a narrative shift of late. It's not going to fix many of the gas problems, and even if they do get the merge going, I think they still have a lot of competition out there that can provide services cheaper, faster, and that is unfortunately what people want, even if it's at the trade-off of decentralization. So we'll see, but certainly there's going to be a lot of narrative around it for sure.
Yeah. What do you think, Ron?
Yeah, they've been busy with this for a long time. They do it in small steps. Basically, we had some what's called EIPs updated in the last year, and so it's gearing towards the final step, and that's the change to point of stake. I think it's a necessity for Ethereum to get their gas prices down. That's very important. You see, what I think is if they can pull it off, we'll probably see some competitors getting it a bit harder to work with. For instance, Solana will be hit hard when this obviously will work or not. Yeah. And if it doesn't work, we'll see a large uplift in the competitors.
Yeah. And
my idea is that I think that they'll pull it off. I think it will work. They've been anticipating this for a long time with all kinds of incremental updates, and I think this one is going to work.
Yeah, so I don't know if it will work, but I think it will, because the first time they come with a date, and they talk about June 22nd, so there is a date, and they're pretty confident that they will do the migration. Now there are a couple of things that we need to look at here. First of all, what does it mean when you do the migration? Everyone talks about ETH 2.0, but what does it mean? It means, first of all, that we're moving 100% from proof of for mining to validation. So proof of work to proof of stake. The technology becomes much greener, and of course, it's not going to be anymore as decentralized as Bitcoin. But that's one thing very important. Second thing is that the coin is going to be much more deflationary, because they're going to have a big reduction. They already have big reduction because they're burning much more coins, but they're going to be issuing less coins. And so I think we're talking about inflation will be reduced from 4.3 to 0.43% per year, which is a lot. And that also will have an impact on the price in the long run. And the third thing is that the reward is going up. This time, I think we're talking about 4.7% when you are rewards, and it's moving to 10 to 15% APR per year. And that's huge. So I actually, if you're looking at the market and the price, and I actually see that the price of ETH will go up a lot in the coming months because of that news. And it's going up. It's going up in the last since the news came up. You see that the ETH is definitely outperforming Bitcoin right now. So and the trend will continue, and it takes the rest of the altcoins as well with it.
Yeah, there was somebody who was ticking or something like that. I don't know where that sound came from.
I thought it was you, Vincent.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was muting everybody, and it still continued to happen. So very curious. So James, I mean, you think it might not work? I mean, if you look at Solana or something like that, all the competitors who are really trying to be that first layer solution, who do you think is a good competitor in your eyes?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a bit more of a nuanced view. So when I look at what Ethereum is doing, I don't believe the greener narrative concept, because I think proof of work naturally finds energy that's wasted anyway. I think it's poorly understood that how proof of work gets integrated into energy grids and the like. What I look at when I see Ethereum moving to proof of stake is I actually see it stepping into a field where it actually doesn't have an advantage. So if we look at things like Solana or AVAX, to be honest, I put them all kind of in the same bucket. they're newer startups. They're easier for people to change and make better and improve. We've seen Solana go down and they just flick the switch and turn it back on again. Whereas Ethereum is carrying, 6 years worth of technical debt, and then stepping into a field of, brand new competitors that have learnt all the lessons over the past. And, in many ways, it does this under the attempt to be decentralized. We actually did a study recently which showed that the vast majority of staking is already centralized on a number of exchanges and one or two, in inverted commas, decentralized protocols that, host staking. So in many ways, I think that it's already approached that level of centralization that, the narrative is that proof of work is centralized. Well, what we're seeing is the same in proof of stake. And when I think about it, most people don't want to have $100,000 sitting on their laptop that if it turns off, they're going to get slashed. They're going to want to put that into custody and allow someone else to stake for them. So I think a lot of the incentives are kind of aligned towards Ethereum moving into a centralized competition field, of which it doesn't actually have an advantage. My personal take is the best thing Ethereum could do is stay proof of work and scale up in layers instead. Because that would make it far more decentralized and, in my view, would actually make it differentiate itself rather than trying to step into a field where it doesn't have an advantage. So it's kind of a nuanced take, but I think proof of stake is a mistake over the long term.
Okay. What do you think, Ronald?
No, I don't think proof of stake is a mistake. I think proof of stake is the future. So, and I think eventually even Bitcoin will go to proof of stake.
Well,
there's a 0% chance of that happening.
Yeah,
0%.
Well, maybe
it's a bold statement, but I'll take that.
It will never happen.
Yeah, I think it will.
My node will never upgrade to proof of stake.
You do not know if something like this is happening. If people forbid to say you cannot basically if you have proof of stake. I mean, Idan and I we had 60 miners, James. We had 60 miners, and we were working together with a tomato farmer who had his own electricity, and we used the heat to put it back into the glass houses, and we did everything to be green mining. But it was such a total waste of energy. And it was really good energy. It was not bad energy. It was not for something which needed to be thrown away. So I hope that Ronald is right, because I think it's a really shitty way to prove security with such a huge amount of things.
Proof of stake has proved itself in the last couple of years as a better alternative for proof of work. So it will happen even to Bitcoin, I'm sure.
I want to add one thing about what we're talking about. We should remember ETH as the biggest ecosystem in the crypto industry right now. So if they move to proof of stake, we have a lot of layers one, and Avalanche is definitely a big competitor, and we have a few others. But if they're making it right, they're going to be ahead of the rest.
Okay.
I'm quite happy to be on the under of this bet.
That's fine. It's nice to have two people. And I mean, Jan Prins says proof of stake is death of BTC. Okay, so we'll see about that. We have a question for Idan from LinkedIn. At LinkedIn, when people ask questions at LinkedIn, you cannot see the name. But what will be the counter effect of 2.0 for Solana? What's your take on that?
So I always said, and I said a few times, I think there are going to be a few parties and a few layers one that will work together, and they will find a way also to integrate with each other, whether it's with the bridge that's not safe enough or there's another way. They're finding a way. I think the problem of Solana right now that the system is not strong enough, and they have a lot of problems and they have a lot of bugs and errors. And that's why you see the price went down very much. So Solana needs to fix their issues, and then there will be a strong player in the market together with ETH, and not against ETH. That's the way I see it.
Okay, he's basically coming up with Reza. His name is Reza. Okay, Reza, hi, fantastic. Okay, let's talk about one last new little thing about which we already covered, the Ukraine. That the president signed legal tender is that, I mean, he basically got 100 million in donations in a very quick time. Just basically a Bitcoin address, Ethereum address, and everybody started to, it was a very direct way to show the power of cryptocurrencies. And it was 100 million. I think it's now maybe 125, and and now he signed a bill. Is this significant? Is this an interesting development? Who wants to give his take on this?
Well, you know, every time a country is making Bitcoin a legal tender, it's another progress. And it's great because it's not going to be the last one. El Salvador started something, and now it's a much bigger country. And we really see the reason why they use it. And, you know, they're in, obviously, it's a very difficult position right now. And we see for the first time, maybe, why Bitcoin exists. For the first time after 11, 12 years, we really see the use cases, the real use cases that people really can use Bitcoin as something very valuable as an exchange.
That's inspiring. Yeah.
And I think probably from my end, the most important part about more countries coming on board, I'm actually not that crazy about countries making it legal tender, you know, because the problem is that countries and, you know, particularly as you go further down the risk curve of countries, they don't normally have a good track record of managing their money very well. So the risk of someone just, you know, absconding with the funds is always there. But what it does do is the more countries that come on board, it de-risks. So if you have one country that's, let's just say El Salvador, if something goes really pear-shaped in El Salvador, that would be a big risk for Bitcoin. Whereas if you now have 5 countries who are there and one of them disappears with the funds, it's a country problem rather than a Bitcoin problem. It's much harder for narratives and media and whatnot to spin it. So it's a de-risking thing.
Okay, Ronald, one last remark on this.
Yeah, no. In the past, we've seen other institutions looking for Bitcoin as an alternative when they were locked out of things like credit card. For instance, WikiLeaks. That's a couple of years ago, but they also at one moment they were cut off from credit card donations, and they turned to Bitcoin, and that was the best step they ever made, according to Assange. So that's also I mean that's an older example. Basically the same thing.
Yeah, and my cleaner who was from the Philippines started to send. It was very funny. He started to send money to his family in the Philippines, and the Philippines didn't really understand it. And so she got this wallet with a whole bunch of Bitcoin. She didn't use it, and then it went up a factor of 50 in the meantime. So instead of having $10,000 in the end, he had about 300,000, and then he went home and he bought a house, and because they didn't basically use the Bitcoin to live from it. So anyway, so we're going to the next. Yes, and we're going to the person of the week, Jasper Check. Well, okay, we heard you're an opinionated Australian living in Mexico at the moment because you want to do something else. I basically found out about your company because of Idan, and Idan was a very enthusiastic, was using the program, became a member of it, and then Hugo, a friend of mine, became, I think, what does he do in your company, Hugo Leitens? Yeah, the product manager. Yeah. So and I met the whole team, and I think it's useful for everybody to basically get to know this Glassnode check. So maybe could you give us an introduction, James, about what Glassnode is and what kind of people you make tools for?
For sure. So yeah, so Glassnode is we're a data provider with a focus on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other projects. And really what we look at is the on-chain data. So it's taking kind of that next layer to your technical analysis and tries to bring out all of the actual movement of funds. So the way that I like to describe it is, imagine if you could see the money moving through the SWIFT system. You could see when Goldman Sachs is making moves. You could see when lots of people in the public are making moves. It essentially provides you with that insight into market behavior and particularly market psychology. So we get to see people literally buying the top. We get to see people capitulating at the bottom because we see these trends of, people who've held their coins for 5 years selling at the top and people who bought them at the top selling them at the bottom. So we get to see all of these things play out depending on how people move their funds around. So it's a data provider that, we've got a whole suite of metrics that cover a great number of different elements. So the one that you've got shown is one of the more recent ones that we've released called our accumulation trend score. So what this will do, we're looking at on the Bitcoin ledger, all of the different what we call entities. So I'm sure many of you in the audience have probably got more than one address. And our algorithms and our data science team has built systems that can essentially say all of these addresses belong to one owner. So we can look at, for example, Binance. We can see how Binance behaves with their wallet management. And we can say that's one entity. So what this metric is doing is it's looking at all of the entities on the network, both individuals and whales and all the rest of it, and it weighs them up depending on how much they're accumulating, adding to their balance, or distributing. So, for example, if we have a great number of whales who represent a large stake in the network and they're adding a significant amount to their balance, or you have lots of, imagine lots of small investors all adding to their balance, kind of making up the scale of a whale, then we'll start to get these purple scores up here. And you can see that through the bull market, we get these large pushes and it's sustained, right? So a bull market really has this characteristic of sustained pushes of lots of accumulation, lots of entities adding to their balance. As we move into the bear market, so for reference, this is where I entered the market, right here at the top. And I was forced this bear market. But you can see just how much 2018 cooled off. We went into this yellow zone, which is basically showing that we do not have, and people are distributing. There's no accumulation. People are essentially unwinding their balances. So you can see a very distinct change in character as we move into that bear market. What you can also see is that why the bottom got put in through November and December. You can see that a huge amount of accumulation occurred and was then sustained for a period of time all the way into 2019. And what I've been talking about recently is the similarities between, you can see in the color chart, 2018 and how similar our 2021 market structure actually looks. Very, very yellow, lots of distribution, lots of people being flushed out, and essentially people selling the top, right? Putting in this top market up the top here. What we then see is that 2019, even though it was also a bear market, you can see that it kind of interchanges between accumulation and distribution. We get these kind of, and again, I was in this 2019 market and I questioned my sanity every time I was buying, and it kept going down, and I kept buying and it kept going down. But my conviction was very high at that point in time. So when I draw analogies to where we are in the current environment, we've seen this 2018 event through to 2021, where we've essentially flushed out everybody who was a tourist, who was just here for the hype and the excitement. And the people we're really left with in the market right now are those who have very, very high conviction. They believe in Bitcoin as an asset. They're seeing all the fundamental shifts, everything we talked about in the news segments before. And they're more or less accumulating irrespective of price, right? And you know, there's a whole lot of macro environments that very well could send us lower, but yet people continue to accumulate. You can see we've got these much darker colors. It's more reminiscent of a 2019 style market than it is a 2018 style. So even though we still have depressed prices, we are seeing that there's like this undertone of strength. Those who remain are essentially hodlers, and they're here for the long haul. So it's interesting kind of seeing these patterns playing out in on-chain data.
Yeah. So and that is just one slide. That is just one slide which describes the market, right? Why is this interesting for you, Idan? You came with this company, and they didn't have this particular graph. They didn't have it. But why did you think it was interesting?
No. So one of the things that we are looking at every day is the sentiment, and you know, everyone talks about the bear market, and everyone is selling off, and the price is 34. It's going to go another 50% down, and this is exactly what I'm looking for. And I'm trying to avoid the tweets and trying to look at this kind of data. And I try to listen to James every week and what he was saying. And in a bear market, and that wasn't so long time ago, he said, guys, a lot of wealth are accumulating right now. And then at some stage he said, now the wealth have stopped accumulating, and you see that the retailers start accumulating. And for me, it was an indicator of how we in our strategies, what we should do in our strategies, and whether we should sell or whether we should buy or whether we should wait. And so it's another component for the analysis we're doing throughout. And so yeah, it's a great tool if you're a professional trader, or you're in this business, or you want to hold and you find Bitcoin. And I think it's mainly for Bitcoin, but I use it mainly for Bitcoin.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. James, show us some more slides. I mean, especially we're interested, of course, in predicting, getting the sentiment, seeing when you can predict a change of mood. Do you have some more of those kinds of things?
For sure, yeah. It's and that's the thing. I've often thought about on-chain analytics. It's kind of like looking beyond the poker face, right? The market has this kind of everyone tries to do their own thing, and whatever they say on Twitter isn't necessarily what they're doing. Show me your portfolio, not what your thoughts are. And what on-chain analysis is really doing is trying to cut back a lot of that noise. So the chart that I've got shown here is one that we call our long and short-term holder supply. So it's mapping from 0 to 100% of the overall supply. And I've got shown here what we call our long-term holders in blue. The dark color is those that are in profit, and those that are in a loss is in the light colors. And what this is showing is people who've held their coins for more than 5 months, 155 days. And when we look at the chain and we analyze all the statistical base of how people spend, once people get to that 5-month cost basis and they've held their coins for that length of time, statistically speaking, they have a much, much lower chance of selling in terms of panic, and you get some kind of candle and they get scared and sell their coins. The converse of that are what we call the short-term holders, and they are far more statistically likely to sell when you get some kind of candle, both to the upside and the downside. So what we typically see is this is the point here in 2016 or 2017 that I call peak hodl. It's when the maximum amount of coins are held by these longer-term investors. You can see that they're all in a profit as markets make all-time highs. And following that point, they start to distribute. So that you see that they're starting to spend their balance, they're selling their coins. And at the Pico top, right, when the market tops out, we essentially have all of the strong hands who bought during the bear market and had the patience to sit and wait. They have offloaded. And that means that people who bought those coins, myself included at that point in time, brand new to the market, I have no experience, and the market just keeps going down, I'm the most likely to sell. So it's like this transition of wealth from the stronger hands to the weak hands that puts in a market top. You can see that we had that same pattern, which aligned with that accumulation behavior score. So we saw that distribution phase that we were looking at in the previous metric. So there's a confluence there. Now, following the top getting put in, we see these long-term holders, they get their 50% discount, and then they recommence their accumulation. Right? We saw that here we had a 20,000 down to 6,000 sell-off, and then the long-term holders started reaccumulating. So what we can see at the moment is that we are getting up to this point where we're almost at all-time highs. Now, the thing that I find very interesting about this particular metric, normally when we get to the previous cycle's all-time high, you can see it here at 20,000, the long-term holders really start their selling. Now, we hit 2 all-time highs back here, but the market wasn't ready to keep going. And what's very interesting is that rather than completely de-risking and continuing to sell and go, the cycle's over, Bitcoin's going to zero, as we see through this process, they really slowed down their spending. So we're seeing that there's this undertone of very, very strong conviction. What we're not seeing is people going, okay, now that we're at 42,000, I need to just get out and de-risk and end this thing. We're not seeing that level of capitulation, which is interesting. We're certainly seeing that there's a level of conviction that remains in the market. These folks are more or less sitting there just waiting, and they're patient investors. They're people who are willing to weather multiple years, multiple months of this drawdown. And the fact that we still have such a large amount of supply locked up by these cohort, if we start to see that increase and more of these buyers coming in and hanging on to their coins and taking them off the market, then that's just, it naturally creates a supply squeeze over the longer term. So who knows if we're out of this consolidation at this point in time, but certainly the overall supply dynamics and investor sentiment remains very, very constructive.
Okay. What do you think, Ronald, of these kinds of tools?
I still have to see what the value of the on-chain data is. So I'm not really but I mean, these kind of values you can also get by looking at the graph. But so I still I don't see much added value in this, but that's my
Yeah. So we have always Ronald always has he's always a little bit more skeptical until it proves itself. How could we? Do you have other tools and graphs, Jasper, James? Sorry, James, to basically say, hey, the signal function. I mean, of course, for us, we're going to talk after this about Ronald, who basically made a signal about, hey, what the market's going to do, going up or down. Do you have any one of those kinds of tools?
Yeah, indeed. So this is one that we call the short-term holder SOPA, or spent output profit ratio. It's a bit of a mouthful, but what this is looking at is essentially a ratio between the price call it the more reactive. So think about the marginal buyer and seller. These are the speculators, the people who are coming in for the short term, the trader types. And when they're in profit and they're selling into profit, this metric will trend higher. And conversely, when they're selling at a loss, this will trend lower, below a value of 1. So there's a few market characters that we can look at in this. You can see that during a bull market, we essentially get these folks realizing profits, selling into the top, and then we get our correction. And note how this metric essentially drops back to this baseline value of 1. Now, when it comes back to a value 1, it's showing that people are no longer selling their coin. People who bought the top are selling at a loss, and others who are stepping in and actually buying those coins, putting in that support. So what we essentially see is this kind of pattern of it returning to 1, getting another bounce, returning to 1. So you can start to pick up where the base of these corrections are. In other words, people are literally selling the top, which puts in the oversupply, and conversely, a bunch of people who bought that top are then selling at a loss, and someone else is stepping in to buy at their cost basis.
Oh, yeah.
So it provides this bouncing pattern where you essentially have people stepping in and buying their cost basis because they see value once again. Now, the converse is also true. When it breaks down below 1, you're in a bear market, and when it comes back to a value of 1, people are just willing to say, get me out at my cost basis. I just want to get my money back. So you kind of swap over, and there's that alternative, and you can also see that we get this kind of uptrend until we finally break above and we get this kind of regime change. So it's a very interesting trading oscillator in that regard.
Mm-hmm. But James, all the trading is done on exchanges where you don't get any information about. That's all off-chain. So how can you see when, for instance, what's happening on the exchanges and where the price has been made? How can you see that while looking at the chain itself?
So that's actually a really, really good question. And it's one of those things that I initially thought when we went into 2021 that you would be correct and that on-chain data may start to lose signal. That was one of my base cases, and I was thinking about how we could start to adjust for it. What we still see is billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin flowing into exchanges every day and billions of dollars flowing out. And impressively, what we see is the same patterns showing up across our metrics very, very consistently. So yes, the trading is occurring on exchanges, but when we actually look at the characteristics of coins flowing in and out, the volumes are simply enormous in terms of dollars and BTC value on a daily basis. We're talking thousands of coins a day are flowing in and out on a consistent basis. And we can then break that down even further and characterize, are they long-term holders that are selling? Are they selling at a profit, at a loss? And, we can look at all of these metrics across a broad suite. So whilst you're correct that the actual trading is done on exchanges, we still to this day see an extraordinary amount of funds flowing in and out. And to kind of illustrate this point, let me just jump onto our exchange balance. This is actually probably of all the charts that tells the story of Bitcoin over the last period of time, this is probably it. Let me just turn off my log scale here. So this is the balance of coins that are held on exchanges. And what you can see is that through all of Bitcoin's life, we saw an uptrend. This is the growth of exchanges, people getting into more trading venues, all the rest of it. And note that March 2020, the sell-off was the absolute all-time high in exchange balances. We have then seen a complete regime shift where people are actually starting to pull their coins out of exchanges. And this trend does continue to this day. And what I would also just highlight is that over here, the scale is 16 to 14% of all coins held on exchanges. Where we're currently trading is 13.3%. So that, in other words, means that the other 87% of the supply is off exchanges. So yes, the trading goes on exchanges. However, the vast majority of coins are held outside of that. And we still to this day see investors pulling them off and using them in their own activities. So that trend really hasn't changed. And to be honest, when you look at March 2020 happening the way it has, people taking their own custody of their coins is an increasing trend that we see. So it is very interesting on that front.
Okay, we have to leave it at this. I just want to say, if people want to have this, this is the pricing of the tool. You have a very inexpensive version of $29. What do you get for that, and what's the difference between the professional?
Absolutely. So when we're looking at the advanced tier, that will really give you the core of all the on-chain data. It will show you a lot about whether it's tops and bottoms indicators.
No, but let's first start about advanced. Oh yeah, advanced. Yeah. We're talking about advanced. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so advanced is really for people who are getting into the market, understanding how to track tops and bottoms, spending behaviors, exchange balances, really all of the core narratives we have in the advanced package. Once you move into the professional tier, it's a lot more discrete. So rather than looking at just minor balances or exchange balances, you can go into more detail looking at things like a specific minor to a specific exchange. You can look at things like our long and short-term cohorts and really dive into the details there. But certainly at the advanced level, it's a tool about understanding what the network health is, what is the macro flow of funds, and then getting down to some of those trading indicators like our SOPAs and MVRVs and things are a bit more bespoke. So it's certainly an interesting spread across both.
Yeah. Okay, and we can highly recommend it. We really enjoyed it. So stick around, James. And
I'll convince you, Ronald. We'll get there.
Yeah. Oh, I guess actually.
Idan and I are talking a lot about Glassnode, so we'll probably come back to you.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is that, I mean, you got irritated also because everybody was talking about it, right? I mean, it's just like you go like, hey, it's so popular, then I get suspicious too when they get popular. There's one other little program you have, and it's accounting. And is that from the same company or is that from the same founders?
Yeah, same founders, and yeah, it's essentially the accounting side of things. So I know in the past that I've done my Bitcoin taxes, and it was an absolute nightmare. So a piece of software like this, I've said it in the past, is basically written by God in terms of how much it improves your life and takes just the amount of time out of your day. And again, many tax accountants are so far behind on processing all of these things. The ability to plug a wallet in and it essentially spits out your tax report and follows them between exchanges is super powerful.
Yeah, and this is not part of Glassnode. This is a separate company.
Separate company.
Okay. Hey, and who started Glassnode?
So we have three founders, Jan, and Raphael. Really they kind of spawned it out of the observation that there's all of this data on the chain. And so few people were passing it and turning it into actionable information. So kind of taking their experience in the trading realm and the data science realm, identifying a gap in the market, building out the company in the bear market, and really, really pushing great products to where we are today.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, James. Stick around, and now we're going to talk to Ronald. And Ronald, I'm very interested in what you are now doing, because we talked about a month ago about that we wanted to have some kind of a protection, some kind of signaling, some kind of a tool for a professional trader to find out, hey, when is this market going up and down? And now we looked what James has, and we really are curious what you've come up with and what phase Diamondpigs you're in.
Yeah, I'm switching to Dutch, by the way. Laatste keer hebben we dus gesproken over wat voor indicatoren we konden gebruiken en wat voor dingen ik heb daar behoorlijk wat analyse naar gedaan. En gekeken wat voor onze geschikte sentimentindicator is. En we zijn uiteindelijk met de bouw van de DPI, dat is de Diamondpig Indicator, zijn we begonnen. En misschien kan je het slide even laten zien, Vincent. Ja. En dat is in feite een indicator waarop wij nu zeggen van oké, op die manier kunnen we een Bitcoin sentiment bepalen. En kunnen we dus onze investeringen in de altcoins helpen om in en uit te stappen op momenten dat de markt er gewoon niet zo goed uitziet. Aha. Wat je hier ziet is in feite als de balk groen is, even heel simpel. Als de balk groen is, dan moet je er dus in zitten. Als de balk rood is, moet je eruit. En wat je dus zien is dat we met ons fonds vanaf, wat was het? November vorig jaar zo'n beetje. Toen hadden we echt wel een probleem met de altcoins. Dat is behoorlijk naar beneden gegaan. En dat hadden we dus kunnen voorkomen als we hier gezegd hadden van we stappen op dit moment uit de markt. Nou, het mooie van een automatische bot is dat je dat in feite kan backtracen. Je kan zeggen van oké, als we dit gedaan zouden hebben, wat zou er dan met ons fonds gebeurd zijn? Daar hebben we hier een overzichtje van gemaakt. En de gele lijn is dus Bitcoin. Dan de blauwe lijn is ons Duroc-fonds. En dat presteert beter als Bitcoin. Maar dat zie je toch dat er vooral de laatste tijd een flinke daling in zit. En als je dus die sentimentindicator loslaat. Sorry. Ik ben mijn grafiekje. Als je dus die sentimentindicator loslaat op de op de Duroc-koers. Dus dan ga je in feite met het Bitcoin-sentiment kijken naar wat er gebeurt met de altcoins. En dan zie je dus dat er ook dat je een veel betere prestatie kan krijgen als je op bepaalde momenten uit de markt gaat. En hier zie je dus uit de markt betekent in feite dat je dus, ik weet niet of mijn muis, dat je dus in feite hier uitstapt. Dan krijg je dus een rode platte lijn, dat is dus dan zit je in stablecoin. En hier ga je er weer even in, maar dat blijkt dus een misser te zijn. Dus hier gaat hij er weer uit en dan hier ga je eruit. Nou ja, in ieder geval, uiteindelijk kom je dan op een prestatie die bijna 2 keer zo goed is nog als wat Duroc doet ten opzichte van Bitcoin. En het leuke van dit is dat je dus dit op alle... ik heb dit getest op alle markten, dus ook op bear markets, op bull markets. En dat werkt eigenlijk altijd wel goed. En je ziet ook, omdat je wat conservatiever bent, zie je dus ook dat je af en toe onderpresteert. Dat zie je dus in dit gebied, kan je dat zien. Maar wat we merken van onze klanten is dat ze dus vooral de drawdown, dat ze daar erg bang voor zijn. Of bang, dat ze die willen vermijden, zeg maar. Ja. En dat je dus bereid bent om misschien een iets mindere performance te bieden in de uptrend. Maar dat je dus je drawdown kan beperken. En daar is dit dus heel geschikt voor.
En als ik het goed begrijp, gebruik je dus het sentiment van de Bitcoin om uit altcoin markets te stappen.
Ja,
je kijkt niet, dit is een of andere indicator, wat voor factoren zitten daar zo al in, zeg maar? Hoe heb je dat bij elkaar?
Nou ja, dat is in feite dit ding. Dus in feite is dit de sentimentindicator die ik gebruikt heb. En die zegt dus in feite gewoon op basis van Bitcoin van je moet nu uit de altcoins. Hè? Dus die gaat dus in de periode van, mei tot september van vorig jaar, gaat hij dus, dan zie je dus een downtrend in Bitcoin. En daar kan je dus besluiten om uit de altcoin-markt te stappen.
Ja. Dus, en dat is in één keer helemaal uit alle altcoins? Gebaseerd op BTC, zeg maar.
Ja, en we zijn dus nu bezig om variaties te bedenken waarbij je dus zegt van, ga niet helemaal uit de altcoins, maar... ik ga bijvoorbeeld ook de signalen van de altcoin zelf ga ik gebruiken om in en uit te stappen. Dat kan nog enige verbetering geven. Dus dat is nog in onderzoek, zeg maar. Dus we zijn nog niet klaar, maar we zijn wel een heel eind met deze nieuwe strategie. Ja.
En wat is nu waar ben je nu? Zeg maar, gebruik je dit al? Of is dit in beta?
Ja, we zijn dit, dus als de beheerders van Duroc en Genua zijn we dus, Idan en ik kijken hier wel nu naar. Dus we gebruiken wel dit sentiment al om onze beslissing op te maken. Maar we hebben nog niet dit zodanig geautomatiseerd, omdat we eerst het eigenlijk voorzichtig willen beoordelen. Pas voordat we het echt zeggen van oké, we hebben nu zoveel vertrouwen erin dat we het volledig automatisch laten werken.
Ja, dus je ziet, als ik nu even kijk naar de resultaten, dit is dan van vandaag, zeg maar.
Wat interessant is, klik eens op Duroc, Vincent. Dan kan je zien wat bijvoorbeeld, als je naar het Duroc-fonds gaat, dan kan je eens even zien naar de individuele munten. Er is dus een overzicht van, hè? Klik daar eens op.
Welke?
Ja, ik weet niet waar dat zit. Er zit ergens je kan dat overzicht waar je de muntverdeling over tijd ziet. Ik weet niet, dat zit, dacht ik, op de...
Waar zit dat?
Ja, voor mij moet je gewoon op een munt klikken, dacht ik.
Okay.
Daar. Nee, dat werkt niet. Ik weet niet waar dat zit.
Ik heb hier nog een i'tje.
Nee, die is het ook niet. Ik weet niet waar dat overzicht zit. Sorry. Ja. Nou ja, goed. Er is een overzicht waar je ziet dat we dus de afgelopen paar weken, dus in feite, als je op mijn scherm kijkt, dus in... sorry. Ga eens even naar mijn scherm.
Ja.
Dus we hebben dus in deze periode van de laatste tijd, dus dat is dit stuk, zeg maar. Gaat hier. Deze periode vanaf maart, hier zijn wij dus voor een groot gedeelte in USD gegaan, omdat hier dus het sentiment gewoon slecht was. En wat je nu dus ziet, is dat we nu dus weer een sentiment positief wordt. En we nu dus weer de laatste 10 dagen of zo, zijn we weer behoorlijk ingestapt in de markt.
Ja, ik zie het. Als je kijkt dus... Maar hier zie je dus inderdaad, hieronder zie je dus...
Nee, je moet bij je eigen strategie kijken, daar kan je het zien. Daar kan je bij, het zit niet hier.
Nee, maar ik zit hier even te kijken naar het resultaat.
Ja.
Je ziet hier dat hier is Bitcoin en hier zie je dus Pennywell, die heeft het heel goed gedaan. En dan heb je hier over 1 week. Nou ja, maar over 1 week, dan over 1 dag en over 2 weken.
Ja.
zie je dat Berkshire het weer heel goed gaat, maar in ieder geval dat je wel Bitcoin uitperformt. En eigenlijk in de maand zie je dat ook een aantal zaken uitperformen. Maar jij denkt van dat je dit nu steeds meer gaat automatiseren. Je gebruikt nu eens handmatig, maar je gaat steeds meer automatiseren om uit te stappen op het moment dat er een negatief sentiment is.
Ieder en ik gebruiken dit nu als ondersteuning. Maar het doel is, als we dit echt goed gebacktest hebben en ook vertrouwen erin hebben, dat we dit willen automatiseren.
Oké.
En dan kan je ook op een veel betrouwbaarder manier zeggen van ik kan bewijzen dat het deze performance heeft.
Ja, en dit is gebaseerd op technische analyse. Hè? Dit is zeg maar dit is uit factoren uit de markt zelf. Dit is niet bijvoorbeeld, je kijkt niet naar...
Hier zit geen Glassnode data in, dat klopt. Het is puur TA, dus kwantitatieve analyse. Op basis van indicatoren ga je dus een sentimentsindicator maken. Ja. En dat is nu nog even gewoon puur op de BTC-grafiek.
Maar de keuze van de munten zijn gebaseerd op fundamentals. Dus we kiezen de munten op basis van fundamentals en de sentiment in de markt. En dan gaan we naar de technische analyse kijken en naar die algo die Ronald heeft gebouwd om te beslissen wanneer we in- en uitstappen.
Ja. En je gaat het nu, eerst was het dus grof op BTC-basis, zeg maar, de altcoins gaan, maar je gaat nu langzamerhand ook meer per munt ga je kijken naar die sentimentanalyse. Die kun je breder maken.
Ja. Nou ja, in het verleden was het zo dat we echt fundamenteel op de munten zaten. Dus zeggen van dit is een munt die is zo kansrijk dat we die moeten we hebben. Hè? Bijvoorbeeld, ik noem maar wat Cardano, ADA. Die hadden we dan genomen omdat daar fundamenteel gewoon een goed team, er zit een goede technologie zit erachter, et cetera. En dat was dan de reden om in de munt te stappen, dus puur fundamenteel. En nu gaan we dus dan zie je dat je dan ook de grote downtrends dus meepakt. Nou, en daar willen we dus een tradingsysteem op zetten, dat je dus regelmatig in en uit ADA zou kunnen stappen, als de markt even tegen zit.
Ja. Hey, let's switch to English. We just got an explanation, James, about the sentiment and analysis which Ronald has made, in which they basically first they use it on BTC and they use it to get in and out of altcoins, but now they're making it per coin. In my dream, we would be much more. This is a very good basis, but also I would like to see how is the stock market doing, how is interest doing, how is the governance doing, what is the political side doing, what's the economy doing, and also we could imagine that in that indicator, there could be a Glassnode role. Is it possible to have an API to get these in an API form so that you give signals in all kinds of specific ways? How does it work at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do have API access for all of our metrics, and if you're talking about altcoins and sentiment and things, I've in the past, if we look at DeFi, for example, DeFi's had a pretty, many of the tokens have had a pretty rough, probably 12 months. And if you look at their on-chain activity, whether it's transaction counts, the amount of value that's being moved around the chain, they all look like the price chart, which is horrendous. So in many ways, you can see when people are coming into the system and using these networks and actually using the tokens and there's demand for them, you can see it in the activity metrics. And then you can combine that with your sentiment analysis and all those different layers. So certainly it's something that I've been watching is just kind of this just very, very simple metrics, transaction counts, active addresses, total value moving, and really they're all trending in the same way. So you can certainly use all this data to back up some of these assertions and models for sure.
Yeah, James, okay. What is the one question? What is the coverage of the altcoins with Glassnode?
So we have a Ethereum suite, which is our second most developed next to Bitcoin, and then all of the major ERC20 tokens and Litecoin as well. So certainly what Glassnode's approach has been a quality over quantity thing. So rather than adding, because this is the thing, the more you study the on-chain data, you realize there's a lot of nuance. And if you just kind of add every coin and put every metric on it, you may not actually provide useful insight for people. So what we do is we make sure that we've really vetted all of the data analysis, made sure we understand what the protocol is doing, and then make sure we have fewer metrics, but of a much higher quality. And once they're on Glassnode, they have that reliability baked into them.
Okay. Hey, James, we have to round it off, but do you also have graphs about Lightning and on top of Bitcoin, and how big, how fast is that growing? Can you show that to us, or is that?
No, I can. Yep. Let me just share my screen. So yeah, it's hang on. Where is
Because
it?
I'm actually really curious. I mean, I see lots of pockets where Lightning is really used a lot. I mean, of course, in El Salvador, but also if you go to the geek scene, everybody's using Lightning, and I'm really looking forward to have millions of transactions at very low cost and incredible speed, which with less security but enough security for the payments. So I'm looking forward to see how that's growing.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you can see this is all of our different Lightning Network metrics at the moment. So we've got things like channel capacity, and remember, a lot of these are the public channels. There's then a whole layer of private channels that actually can't be tracked as easily. But what we're looking at here is you can see all of these metrics, whether it's the amount of Bitcoin held in those channels, the number of Lightning nodes, the amount that's actually flowing through the network. We can see that we've essentially got up and to the right for pretty much every single metric. So it is very exciting. It's still relatively small. You can see here in terms of public capacity, we're talking about something on the order of about 3,500 coins. But overall, what we're going to see is this continue to grow, and as more of these exchanges will start settling value, we'll start seeing more of these payment processors probably taking advantage of it. We're seeing things like what we have in, with Strike and these other entities that are essentially doing fiat exchange. So because there's a fiat pair for Bitcoin in every fiat currency in every country, you can exchange US dollars to Bitcoin, zip it across the Lightning Network, and exchange it for Turkish lira if you wanted. So you can essentially use Lightning as a transfer liquidity layer, and you can essentially have fiat currency on either side. So there's lots of fascinating use cases, and actually it's what makes on-chain analysis so exciting. It's not just on-chain. We also have to look at Lightning Network, how many coins are in ETF products, how many are in wrapped Bitcoins. All of these different elements makes it a very dynamic system.
Yeah. Okay. So we see the amount of Bitcoin locked up in the value of the Lightning Network is very, very small at the moment, 3,500 Bitcoins. How much value goes through these channels, these public channels?
Yeah, so transaction volumes is actually much harder to track, and also it's worth noting that even though Lightning, when we look at the capacity, it's not the same concept as the total value locked that you'll see in many of the DeFi ecosystems. It is a very, very different structure, and it's essentially liquidity. And the way to think about Lightning is like an abacus. So you can have that same value that's bouncing between either side and providing value on either direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without it being necessarily.
But you cannot. But it's basically you cannot go inside the Lightning Network. You can just see the end result on the chain, but you cannot see how much money it can go back and forth 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 100,000 times. You have no idea.
Correct. The amount of utility, so to speak, that each coin can provide is variable. So it's a fascinating system, and I'm very excited to see it scale out.
Thanks. Okay, Ronald, you found the link in.
Yeah. Okay. No, yeah. Sorry, it was not meant to be shown, but okay. What you can see here is how the if you go to the dashboard, and it's in the history here, the history of your. And here you can see in time which coins have been in the funds, and what you can see here is especially this one. These yellow areas are the moments that we've been in USD for the last couple of days.
Okay.
So this is easy to see here, where you can see what and here the amount of BUSD is diminishing. And here we pick it up again, and here it's going back again. So it's been on and off for the last couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting to analyze this if you want to see how your portfolio is changing over time, and which coins do you have to see the BUSD amounts in it.
Yeah. Hey, so what is your vision, Ronald, on expanding on this indicator, the Diamondpigs indicator? Can you add things like Glassnode or like external things like the economy? Is that possible? Can you use artificial intelligence to study all these data sets? I mean, what is your thinking about it?
Yeah, at the moment we are using technical analysis, and we've been studying for. I've been doing this for about 15 years now, so I've seen all the kinds of indicators coming by and disappearing again. I'm focusing right now also on artificial intelligence for using because you can use far more input signals for getting your buy and sell signals. So that means that you can also have, let's say, Twitter sentiment or Glassnode information, and include that in your network.
Yeah, I'm looking very much forward to that. So I'm afraid we have to leave it like that. We just got a comment from Jan Prins, fleshing out the tourist. He loved that line, so that was a really good one. I want to say, hey, everybody. Just if you're interested to start with crypto and you want an intelligent strategy, just join diamondpigs.com. It's really easy, and just diamondpigs.com. You can use it on your mobile, on your phone. We have all these interesting strategies which you can use, and we're getting better all the time. So that's something I want to make sure that everybody does. And I want to thank James very much for getting up so early in Mexico. Just what's going to happen? What's going to happen today?
No, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Look, I've got a bunch of newsletters and videos that we produce for Glassnode. So certainly on-chain it's a new discipline. There's lots of skeptics out there, which means we're doing the right thing. And it's kind of where technical analysis would have been many years ago. So I'm in the process of, and Glassnode's trying to really share how we use the tools. I probably spend more time with the tools than most people. So we have a YouTube channel where we kind of show how I use the tools and how I'm analyzing them, how I combine certain things to prove or disprove certain narratives, and really cut through a lot of the noise. There's a lot of things you can hear in terms of you were speaking earlier. What's real and what's not. Ronald, you probably say everything will show up in the price, and also that everything will show up on chain. And when you glue those two together, that gives you your single sources of truth.
Yeah. If there is one.
If there is a truth. Here is the link to the YouTube channel of James, which we can recommend very much because he's, as you can see, he's a very smooth presenter. Doesn't matter where he is around the world, down under, down on top. He's using the tools and he's explaining them really well. And we'll see what the truth of the on-chain analysis is, James. Thank you very much. Ronald, thank you very much for demonstrating the nodes, and we'll see the results coming up. And I'm really excited also the next time to look behind the scenes, what kind of tools you have as traders, how it really works. So maybe we can open up on that too, because it's really interesting how much information is available on Diamondpigs to see exactly where you invested in, how it went back and forth. We love,
by the way,
as easy as possible.
Yeah, the last chart is available for everybody. Yeah, so
that's what I'm saying. I mean, I really think it's great that as Diamondpigs we open up everything. You give all the information as much as you can. When do you sell? When do you buy? How long do you keep everything? Everything is open, and people can analyze that too. And we want to basically add intelligence on top of that to make even better strategies. So that's for today. Thank you very much, guys. Keep hanging. Stay there for a little bit. We're going to stop the live broadcast. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and then we'll be on Friday, because today is the first day. We did it on first day because Idan and I are going to ski in Austria. Yay! And we deserve it. And thank you for this great look of this T-shirt. Show it one more time, Idan. Looks fantastic. See you next